My name is Lisa Beth Lentini Walker, and welcome to another edition of MentorCore. Today we have another fabulous guest speaker. Like I said, my name is Lisa Beth Lentini Walker. I am a compliance, ethics, and corporate governance strategist. In my regular day, I run the consulting firm Lumen Worldwide Endeavors, but I am the co-founder of MentorCore, and this is really where a lot of my passion and enthusiasm for our profession sits. MentorCore is a community for compliance, security, and risk professionals to come together, learn more from each other, find mentors, and navigate your way through this amazing but sometimes challenging set of professions. And with me today, I have my constant companion and co-founder, Dan.
Constant, eh?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, pretty much. Hi, everybody. I'm Dan Ayala. Welcome. We're really excited to have you all here and really looking forward to this discussion today with Amy. I'm come from the information security and privacy side of the equation. I run a consultancy called Socratic, but like Lisa Beth, the focus on people and growth and helping people in these wonderful industries, both security and privacy, risk and compliance, and ethics, find each other and find ways to help each other grow. It is really moving to me, and it's one of the reasons we started, the key reason we started MentorCore, coming up on a year ago. So welcome, and we're really glad to have you, and we are really glad to have Amy Landry with us. Hi, Amy. How's it going? Welcome.
Hi, Dan. Hi, Lisa Beth. I know I feel like a long-time listener, but first-time caller here.
Well, we're really glad that you called today. So, Amy, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I am Amy Landry. I have been in the compliance and ethics field. It'll be going on 14 years in June of this year. I started off on the vendor side. So I worked 12 years for two vendors, supplying products to various clients on their compliance and risk needs. And then I finally made the switch to go in-house, and I'm working for Cardinal Innovations Healthcare out of North Carolina. And I'm the Senior Compliance Privacy Specialist overseeing our training and communications program.
That's amazing. And I will say, Amy has been one of the people that has been part of the MentorCore story. So it's always nice when we have members who are able to speak. And many of you may recall we had Samantha Kellen on as a guest, who is also from the same company that Amy works for as well. So tell us a little bit, we have a lot of questions around going from working for a vendor and finding your way in-house. Like, what prompted you to think about that? And how was that journey?
Sure. Well, I mean, it's something I've been thinking about for a while. Just talking, over 13 years, just talking with lots of chief ethics officers, general counsels for various companies, just talking to them on their day-to-day basis about their programs and their needs. And I was really like, you know what, I kind of want to go over in-house and actually, work with some of these problems that you have. And I always kept putting it off, like it's not going to happen. I mean, I'm comfortable in my shoes, in my surroundings. I know how to do my current job, and I'm not going to rock the boat by making that change. But last year, when I unfortunately was laid off due to COVID-19, it really gave me an opportunity to stop, think after I processed everything, and really think about, what do I actually want to do? In my career, I've always wanted to make that switch. Why not make that switch now? So then once I kind of made that, that aha moment, like, look, I'm going to do this. I'm going to actually do it. I've been talking about it, but I'm actually going to do it now. And then I really started to put a plan together about, what is it that I need, looking at job descriptions. So I need to brush up on some of my skills, get some certifications. Do I need to go back to school? I started talking to people in my network, Mary Shirley. I talked to both of you guys, Lisa Fine.
Right.
And just kind of have some informational meetings about, so what are some tips you have, or how do what do you do in your day-to-day job, or how do you approach this, or you really just have those informational interviews to kind of understand what everyone does on the other side, to see how I can maybe navigate that.
That's fantastic. And the list of people that you talk to is kind of like a mentor core who's who list, right? Mary Shirley, Lisa Fine, all guests and involved with what we're doing here. Um, what was the way that what connected you to them? How did you reach out to them? What was that moment that like made you feel comfortable? Did you know them from before?
So I knew, so the only one I did know was Mary Shirley. And I totally forgot also about Gwen Womack too.
Yep.
So I actually knew Mary Shirley and Gwen because they were former clients that I worked with. Actually, Mary Shirley, she was a client, but also a colleague at one point too. So her and I have crossed paths many times. So I already had personal relationships with both of them. So when Mary Shirley was probably the first one I did reach out to, when I was like, hey, I'm laid off. Do you have you heard of anybody that's looking for somebody in compliance and ethics training, or third party risk management? If you do hear of anybody, hey, let me know, or so she was kind of like, I guess you say, like my catalyst. After talking with her, and then I talked to Gwen, and then from there, just basically like they were so great and wonderful to say, you should go and talk to so and so, or I'm going to put you in connection with so and so. And so that by then my network just started to grow and grow and expand, and have different avenues, different, and I was always constantly building on. I talked to one person who then let me talk to somebody else, and it just kept expanding from there.
Wow. That's fantastic. And I think that's a testament to the work that you did to network during that time. So I know that one of the things that you did was you did get some training in other things. What led you to the training that you got? And is that something that you would recommend to other people as they think about what they really want to do in those next steps?
Sure. So the CIPP, so my certification in privacy, that was something I had always, again, had in the back of my head I wanted to do. And I just had finally had time to sit down and study and take the test for the certification. Um, I also worked on a cybersecurity course through Coursera. So again, it was more of just looking at, what have I been doing for the past 13 years? What are those skills that I had? And then figuring out, because I really wanted to really have cast a wide net when I was, applying. I wasn't trying to be super focused on one particular thing. I really looked at, I guess you say, very strategic. I looked at all the different, jobs I had over the past, 13 years in both vendors. What were the skills I was doing? What could I transfer? I mean, I was working on training, I was working on communications, I was, building SaaS products, I was implementing SaaS products. We had a lot of European customers, so I had to understand GDPR and how our product would comply with GDPR. So I started looking at all those different skills that I had, and figuring out how could I show a possible employer that I had these skills. I may lack some knowledge, but to counterbalance that knowledge or that experience, I went out and got the certification, or took some more education on a certain topic to hopefully close those gaps that might be perceived.
How were you able to overcome the perception? There's this rampant issue with the unicorn job description. The the job description that's absolutely unachievable many times, because the
Oh yeah.
technologies or the experience couldn't possibly have that many years of experience. But that doesn't stop
13
people
years
from,
of a product that hasn't been out for 2 years only.
Right,
that's the
right.
one. And how did you combat that? And I'll ask it in two different perspectives. One, in your own mind. We talk, imposter syndrome is one of those things that we all deal with a lot, and the discussion has come up a lot. And seeing those job descriptions makes many people think I'm not qualified. So that part. But also when applying to things that you weren't fully qualified for, but still you knew you could achieve? Some approaches to that, because I know a lot of people they get frozen on those parts.
Mhm. Sure. I think probably to the first question, I mean, I definitely know, I mean, it took me a while to overcome that internally, because I would first be honest, I would look at it and say, I don't have that. I don't have 50% or 60% of what is asking, so I'm not going to apply. And then somebody actually, a coach I was working with had actually shared some stats with me, basically saying that men will apply to a position even if they just meet one of the job description qualifications. They'll just
As
go
a
ahead
hiring
and apply.
manager, it's not even always one.
Yeah. So, but for women, we feel like we have to check the box and everything in order to feel like, okay, I can apply. And he basically kind of coached and helped me to like, look, if you can meet 60, 75%, apply. And so that started changing that mindset. I was like, if I can get at least 60, 70, 75% of what they're asking, I'm going to apply. I may get an interview, I may not, but I'm at least going to apply, and I'm not gonna like just pass it and say I can't do it. It's,
Mm-hmm.
I don't qualify. I don't meet the expectations, because you never know. Somebody in the hiring spot might look at something and see something and say, I want to talk to you.
Mhm.
So that was one. And then what was the second question?
So that was your side. Now, and then how did you, so that was how you dealt with it in your
Yeah,
own
how I
head.
dealt with it.
How about on the receiving side?
For how you dealt with it, with kind of saying, hey, I'm a really great candidate, I have X, Y, and Z, maybe we don't have X, Y, and Z, but how did you deal with kind of presenting yourself and saying, you should hire me?
Overcoming the fact that the
Overcoming
manager
the
that
fact that,
wrote it,
yeah.
that wrote the unrealistic job description, or the job description you don't have all the boxes for, still should consider you.
So probably, one example I can probably share is, I was actually called back into an interview for a position. The funny thing is that position, they had not really fleshed out the job description was, so I didn't really know what they were looking for. So it was like, I applied for one position and they're like, we like you, but you're way overqualified for this position. We have this other position we're thinking about, but we're not really 100% sure what it's going to look like. Can we still talk to you? And so I did have a couple of interviews, and it felt like, okay, it kept, feeling like, okay, are you going to make a call? Like, can I get a job description? And I just kept, going back to them and saying, okay, I can put together a 90-day plan on what I think, based on my conversations I've had with you. I'll put together a 90-day plan of what I think are the tasks that should be done in this position that you're trying to create, and see if we can kind of get to it at that point. So it's just being creative. Sometimes you have to, yes, the job description is black and white. It says we need this. Then you can look to see, okay, well, yes, but have you thought about this as well? And then kind of tag that back into, I can also do this. Why? And this can actually, intensify or emphasize or better this part of the job description. What do you think?
That's a really great piece, and it actually dovetails into one of the questions we just got over the from somebody viewing, and it's do you find that hiring managers, HR recruiters, and others are assessing you on what you've done versus your potential and what you could grow into?
Ooh, this is a juicy one.
It
Yes,
definitely is.
I think yes and no. Just from my own personal experience, where I have, I made it through. I made it through that first hurdle. My resume was accepted, and I was told, the recruiter wants to talk to you to see if you're a good fit to move on. And just being asked some of the questions, it felt more like they were just kind of checking down their list. Okay, do you have this? Yes. Do you have this? Yes. Do you have this? No, you don't really have that. But then it was like, I was always trying to say, I don't have this directly, but here's an example of something I have that's similar to that.
Also a good skill in audits.
Oh, you're bringing up pain points there, Dan.
But I definitely found that it was kind of frustrating and difficult, but I always was like, look, I just got to be flexible, adaptable. and kind of like you're a football player. You're like, you're watching like, the receiver in the backfield. Is they going to get the ball? The running back going to get the ball? How do I need to shift and dodge the question, or do I need to change over here? And there's this constant like, how do I be flexible and nimble and adapt to whatever the questions that are being asked, and what challenge do I need to overcome, and how can I overcome that? So it was a lot of mental preparation before the interview, but also during the interview. And then even after the interview, because one thing I also worked on was always making sure I followed up if I did get an interview with that person to say, thank you so much for talking to me about X, Y, and Z position. Just to kind of follow up on something that you asked, I forgot to mention, I also had done this, and that would be really, good for that position as well. So just, if you forgot something, you can send it in that thank you letter.
Yeah, and that thank you letter is from evidence is very important in the U.S., but equally not as well seen outside the U.S. when talking to people about that particular topic. It's interesting how local dynamics really play in on that.
Yeah.
So one of the things that you did, and I have to admit, I've never done this, and so I am highly, highly curious, is at one point you did a virtual job fair.
Mhm.
Tell me what you learned from that. I'm just imagining things because I've never experienced it. But tell me what that was, what it was like as to go through it, what you learned in that process, and whether you'd recommend it to anybody.
So I would say a virtual job fair is probably a regular job fair on steroids. Because you have to do all the pre-prep, going in. You have to have a profile, you have to upload your resume, you have to see
Right.
who's going to be there, what positions, because they will post, most of them will post, some will not, but most of them will post what jobs that they actually are interviewing for. So you can go through each of the booths to see, do they have something that you're interested? Because if they don't, then you obviously don't want to spend your time in that booth.
Right.
You would just go on to the next one. So a lot of research beforehand and a lot of preparation. I think probably the challenging part for me was, so when you're in an actual real job fair, if I remember, because it's been many years since I've been in an actual live job fair, you would go to the booth and you would, there'd be different people there at the booth that you could talk to, and you were just kind of like waiting for your way to kind of butt in and start talking to that person, that physical person, but you could see where you can make that entry into that and get into the conversation. Obviously, if there's nobody at the booth, then you go, hey, I'm going straight to you and I'm talking to you. While you're in the virtual, all you know is there's 20 people in this virtual room waiting to talk to the person or persons from that company. And basically you have, I would say, maybe a couple of seconds to type out a response, your chat message, and make it witty, and to get their attention to, well, I want to come and talk to you. So I think that was probably the most challenging and frustrating part, is like, figuring out what do I say to get their attention. And then once I get their attention, I have my questions, and then you get a clock. You have 2 minutes, basically. On most of these, you have 2 minutes, sometimes less. And you just basically are trying to talk through and get your questions answered as much as possible, and then hope that, at the end, you did enough that they'll say, okay, now we want to move you forward to the next, which is, we're going to ask you for your resume and we'll schedule a more in-depth time. So that was probably the frustrating, is that you have to be on the spot, get their attention, but you can't see them. So you don't know.
And you have to have really fast fingers, like really fast fingers.
It's an even worse. It's like an even more lopsided version of, it's like job Tinder.
Except worse.
Except worse, because you don't have bidirectionality and
right. Exactly. Yeah. You're swiping whatever way it is.
But you don't even know there's another person on the other side.
So we've got a bunch of questions that are coming in through the chat and through the Q&A. One of them is, as you're thinking about, interviews, when you apply, what what did you find your rate of return on applications to interviews was? And are there any tips that you'd suggest to decrease that ratio? And I will be completely forthcoming here. I did a little experiment to see what would happen if I put out my resume to 100 people. It was pretty abysmal. Good thing I wasn't looking for something, but I wanted to see what would happen. Would I get any callbacks? And I was really pretty shocked at, what like a blind resume drop will do, which is very little.
I think it's like maybe like I think I read something. Don't quote me on this, but I want to say it may be like a 10 or 15% return on just
I don't even
putting
think
your
it was
I think
resume out
that
there.
number may be a little
that might
high.
be really
Yeah,
high
I
for
guess
certain.
that's what I say. Don't quote me. Don't quote me because I mean I know I had to research this for a blog post, so it's been a while. So yeah, don't quote me on that. But yeah, maybe less than 10%. But so I did when I was applying, I actually did track. I mean, it was painful. It was painful, but I did track all the jobs that I was applying to. I tracked, the name of the company, what position I was applying to, because I was casting a wide net. I wasn't being very super focused. I mean, I was looking at training, privacy analyst, risk analyst, third party risk management. Again, I was looking at my skills and trying to find not so much job titles, but the job descriptions that would match my skills. So, but I was tracking job titles. I was tracking when I applied, did I hear back? And then how far in the process did I go? I also tracked what version of my resume I would use because I was constantly tweaking. I felt like I was like a mad scientist. I was constantly tweaking my resume. Obviously, my cover letter changed with every single application, but I was just constantly tweaking things to figure out what actually I would start seeing a bigger return. So I probably applied to nearly 200. I think I maybe heard back from 40 or 50%. Most of those were probably no's. And then I may have actually 20% actually, I got at least a first round interview.
Those are really good statistics.
That's very good.
And I will say, for anybody who's in there, doing the job search, like if I look all the way back to when I was when I was in college and I was thinking about, do I go to grad school or do I try to find a job? And I was looking at a summer internship. I applied for literally 100 jobs and I got zero interviews or yeses. They were all outside of the community that I lived in. And so I ended up taking a job, which was great within the community I lived in based on people that I had met. So don't get discouraged if you send out 100 resumes and you're not getting the uptake that you want.
And then I also say one thing because I wasn't relying on just cold applying.
Yeah.
I was using, obviously I did get some things from that virtual job fair that I did. I also used my network a lot. So I had a lot of people in my network that would find something or hear about something, pass it along to me, and say, are you interested in this? If you are, I can maybe put you in touch or put it, share who the person is who's hiring. So I used multiple avenues. I wasn't just cold applying.
Yeah. I've told the story of applying for a job I currently held and having the tracking system automatically reject me. Some testing of ATSs. So yeah, the ability to use other avenues significantly increases your chance of even getting seen by a human, even with first eyes.
Exactly. Yeah. The ATS, that's probably another reason why I was that mad scientist trying to figure out different, I think somebody also shared a couple tips with me. Make sure that in your resume you use the actual title of the job that you're applying for. Make sure that's in your resume. Try to include as many keywords if they make sense. That's the key. If they make sense, try to include as many of the keywords in your resume or cover letter that are in the job description as well.
Which
to kind of bump the score up.
Well, and I think
but it is a game. It is a game sometimes, I feel.
And I think that leads into one of the questions that we got in the chat, which is, what were some of your techniques to distinguish yourself from the competition? Like, why you? And you already brought up a great one, which is, incorporate those things that they've put into the job description, to the extent that they make sense, into your materials, and try not to go in completely, unconnected and, without any um, kind of in with the company somehow. So what else would you add to that?
So definitely, I definitely leverage my cover letter. I always, even if it didn't ask for a cover letter, I would attach it as a third page to my resume, because I really wanted them to, if it got through to pass the ATS, I wanted that person that human on the other side to be able to read, like, what's the story of me? Like, what is my story? What can I share on a human level?
Mhm.
For that company. So I always try to get the cover letter in there, even if they didn't ask for it. Other things, I mean, it was helpful for me. And it actually was shared. Somebody actually suggested this to me over the summer. And at first I was like, really? But it was suggested to me to actually start writing a blog and start talking about, my experience, what I think about the field, the topics that are going on, so that I could be, started to be seen as maybe as a thought leader. And then that's another way to kind of showcase your skills, your knowledge to potential employers. So I did start writing a blog over the summer about that. So that also I
So I
had
got to
that.
tell you, I am a huge fan. I'm going to fangirl a little bit here of the blog that you put out, the articles that you've been writing for Corporate Compliance Insights, which I think are phenomenal. So well done on
Thank
that.
you.
And I think that has been really, really helpful. Dan just put the link to
All
your
your CCI
materials
posts.
into our chat. Um, so on a similar, kind of taking that third party, view of like, here's all the things that are going on and what you should know, I suppose was helpful. One of the questions that we had come in through the Q&A is, all right, like, let's be real here, with non-responses to these job positions and outright denials, right? Or like, like where the group just like ghosts you or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Which we all know happens and is infuriating. How do you manage, anxiety and, concerns about failure and all of the things that go with that? And I'll start out by saying, just to give you a little more time to think, I'll start out by saying, one of the things my dad always told me is, look, you can put out thousands of resumes, but you can only take one job. So all you need to turn this from, a challenging time into a success story is that one position you're going to take.
Exactly.
Um,
Exactly. Yeah.
so what about
No.
what's your advice about like managing anxiety and getting through the tougher times when you haven't landed that job?
Yeah, so I think it's probably a two-part answer. So obviously, after the initial shock wore off of, getting laid off, I just, I allowed myself to cry and process all the feelings. But then it was like the next day, I was like, look, I got to start making a plan. I'm just a planner. I think as a project manager in me, I've always, have a plan. So I'm going to project manage this, and that helped me, um, um, deal with some of it. So that was probably one aspect. I came up with a plan, and then I started executing that plan. The other thing, as I mentioned, I was tracking. So I was looking at the numbers on a daily, weekly basis. And yes, it was depressing to keep hearing that no. But then I just, in the back of my head, and going back to my college statistics class, that law of average, eventually you have to go through so many, and your dad shared as well, you have to go through so many no's until you get that one yes. So every time I kept getting a no, or sometimes two no's in the same day, I just kept telling myself, it's okay, you're gonna get through this. You just haven't found the right position and the right company yet. You will. You just gotta go through another 5, 10, 20. It's gonna happen. So I think it was just me just turning that negative into, like, you just gotta keep that positive mentality and just figure out how you yourself can manage a positive mindset. For me, it was the law of average.
I think that's a great perspective.
That it's remarkably mature. I it's just a very level-headed way to think about it, and I can't say that I'm necessarily that level-headed in those situations.
Oh, sometimes it's hard when you're in the middle of everything. Was there
Yes.
anything that like particularly helped you when you got to like that, oh my gosh, this is ever going to be over feeling? Like were there people you reached out to, or in your moments of need, what'd you do?
Right. Right. I know. So definitely, I definitely had a lot of people in my inner circle, friends, family, look at me every single day and like, how are you able to stay positive? Like if it was me, I would be totally crushed. And I don't know. I think it's just something inside me. I've always been able to be persevere and like, whenever something knocks me down, it's fine. I'm gonna dust myself off, pick up, and I'm gonna move on. It's just like I think it's just in my internal nature of how I work. But I also started running a little bit more. I used to run, but I wasn't, doing it on a consistent basis. So I just started going out and running, bicycling. I ran a couple of 5Ks last summer because that was just a way for me to just let loose and just like let off some steam, there were moments where, yeah, I felt like I got punched around a couple of times and I would go off, have a good cry. And then the next day I'd be like, all right, we're done. I'm moving on. So you have to like let yourself, you know, breathe, accept the feelings. You're gonna have those feelings of being afraid, failure, scared, nervous. All those feelings are gonna come up. And just you just gotta know that they are. Allow yourself to feel them, but then don't dwell in them. Find some way to outreach, whether it's cooking, picking up a hobby, working out, knitting, whatever it is that helps you release, and then find some enjoyment.
I love that you're specifically talking about not repressing every bad feeling, because
Yeah.
I think all too often we're given signals that like feeling upset and feeling frustrated and feeling, uh, unhappy is somehow not okay, but that it like to actually feel that and work through it is so much
Yeah.
healthier than to
It,
deny it.
exactly. It is, and it was a hard lesson for me because I am very prideful. So it was very hard for me to, obviously my immediate family knew like the day it happened. And then, I started letting some people in my network know about it that I felt comfortable with. But then it was like a couple months later, I really started thinking, okay, I got to start sharing this out more. I got to be open and vulnerable. And another reason why I was really happy that somebody gave me that idea about the blog, because that also helps me have that creative release and be able to share what's happening. Because I was like, I'm not the only person this is happening to. There's hundreds, millions of us out there that are doing the same thing. And, if I can share my experience and that allows somebody else to be able to share their experience or feel that, it's okay to have that feeling. It's okay to be upset or have imposter syndrome. It's okay. Recognize it. And then, deal with it, manage it, accept it. Yeah. So that made that all
So we got
Well,
very.
on behalf of the people who have mentioned to me their gratitude at the fact that you both you both you shared your experience, but also that you demonstrated through leading, you led through example of showing that vulnerability and being open. I think it really has made a huge impact, and so I am grateful, and as are many others. So thank you for doing that. One other question that came up through this was, and it's one I share as well. I ask a lot about, why does everybody insist that you have to be a lawyer to be in these spaces? And so the question came in about, did you find it difficult to get over the hurdle of not being a lawyer, but being in this space?
Well, so because I worked on the vendor side. So for the longest time on the vendor side, you didn't need to be a lawyer. So I really never really came, and I also happened to work for a lot of lawyers, so it kind of brushed a little bit off on me. So I have to say, I didn't really come across too much of that hurdle. I definitely, I would recommend listening to, you plugged in Samantha Callan, but I would definitely recommend listening to Samantha Callan's Mentor Core back in February, because she actually talks about, how she's overcome and how she suggests, you don't need to be a lawyer to be in compliance and ethics.
Right.
You don't need to be able to, understand, yes, you have to be able to understand the law and how it pertains to your organization and your risks. But really, as your job as in compliance and ethics is to take the law and how it applies to your organization and coach and train your employees on how they should follow that to do their job in an ethical way. You're not trying to train them, teach them to be lawyers. You just want them to be able to do their job ethically.
Yeah.
Right.
I completely agree. And I put a link to the to Samantha's talk into the chat.
Fantastic. So, when you think about everything that you've done so far, how are you handling the transition, right? Because you started a new job, like what things are you going to take with you that you learned? Are there certain practices that you keep up now that you're in your role? And what do those look like? I know that sometimes these moments in time can be a bit transformative. And one of the things that I learned was I need to continue to grow my network all the time outside of my profession so that I can get different insights. And in case I decide to change what I'm doing, what did you learn from all of this that you would recommend to other people?
No, I think that's one. Probably my top one is definitely one thing I'm taking forward is that I'm gonna continue to build the network. I'm gonna continue to keep up with my network. Communicate, share, learn from them, because I don't want to be in a position that I was last year where I really didn't have. I mean, I had a few people to go to, but it was, my network was, pretty small outside of the vendor. Um, so, definitely that's something I'm going to continue to grow and foster and continue to reach out to people and connect and talk and build those relationships, because, I mean, you only get stronger with a strong network. So that's probably one. Um, Definitely I'm keeping up on, I mean, obviously I have 2 certifications. So I have my CIPP and then I also have my compliance and ethics. So I'm definitely keeping up with those. Those are really helpful for me in my position, because again, my role is working on building out our training and communications program. So I need to understand what's happening, what's changing in the regulation, what's changing in laws, how is that going to impact our policies and procedures, and then ultimately our training. But I also just hearing what other people are doing, getting some ideas of like what other companies and organizations are doing to do training and communication. So that's really helpful for me.
Excellent. Um, so, as you have continued to think about what's next for you as you start looking at your career? Like, are you focused right now on learning the company? Are you focused on, um, tell me what's going on, like just with you and also with your blog. Like, what do you do next with your blog?
Sure. So yeah, so right now I'm really focusing in on obviously learning. It's 2-part. I mean, it's a new industry for me because it's healthcare. I have worked in the past with healthcare customers, so I understand some of the needs. But actually, working for a healthcare provider, that's a big learning curve. So I'm trying to, manage that learning curve. Moving from vendor in-house. So again, before I was advising, clients, I was helping them implement a certain part of their program with one of our products. Now I'm actually in charge of the complete program and actually executing it. So it's not just coming up with a plan and suggesting something and getting it approved and signed off. Once I get it signed off, I got now actually execute it, and then I got to monitor and manage it, and make tweaks. It's not done. So that's definitely exciting and challenging. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm still blogging. I'm probably not blogging as much as I used to, but I am trying to do at least one one post or one article a month through CCI. So you'll still see me and my voice every single month there.
That's very, very exciting.
So you mentioned, Amy, that you're in a new field. You've done healthcare over here in the pharma and other side. You've done other industries and the vendor side. What approaches? So now you've got the job. What approaches are you taking to try and to build out your expertise in this field, in this new area? And it's not specific to this, but how do you start thinking about tackling this whole new space?
Oh, that's a good question. So the nice thing is, I mean, at Cardinal we have some internal material. So I'm trying to read through all the internal materials that we have. I'm definitely, trying to expand my knowledge. I mean, I'm so used to working on anti-bribery, so the FCPA and the UK Bribery Act, in my vendor side. Those are two big that we really focus in on. Some ESG on the supply chain. But now I'm like, it's the Stark and it's anti-kickback. And obviously, I have to understand some of the, more about HIPAA. So it's trying to really get into those different other laws that I'm trying to like kind of understand, and again understand what it is the DOJ or OHS, North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services. What are they trying to ask from us, or what do they need us to do? And then trying to figure out how does that trickle out into our policies and procedures at Cardinal, and then how can I then take that into my training and communication program.
That's phenomenal. So
It's a
next
lot of
week,
it's a lot of learning. It's a huge learning curve.
And you'll have all that by
And I'm
Tuesday, right?
exactly.
Well, I think we were talking about this before we went live with this, just the idea of pacing and the entering a new field or entering a new area, and going under that expectation that you'll walk in and have it all figured out in 6 weeks is unrealistic, but it's something that really does weigh on a lot of people. And you shared with me, you're like, we're definitely taking this. It'll take time to get through this. I think that's wise advice for anybody going into a new role,
Exactly.
especially if it's in a whole new field.
Exactly. I was told I'm so happy and thankful for my team members. I mean, they've been pretty open and honest with me. Give yourself a year. It's a steep learning curve. So give yourself a year. And so that's something that I'm always constantly reminding myself, like, yes, I'm picking up new things every single day, every single week. I'm picking up something new and I'm expanding, but I'm not going to be, an expert yet. And that's fine. I'm reminding myself, you got time. You've only been there. I've only been there. I'm coming up on 90 days. So, it's
still
going to take
pretty
some time.
new.
And you
It's
don't
still
even have to
pretty new.
report to Congress until 100 days.
Right?
So you've got plenty of time.
I still have 15 days until I have to do that. I've got plenty of time.
So I'm going to dig a little bit deeper into the network and keeping your network up to speed. Now, when you are in pursuit of a job and your focus is on keeping that network alive, that's where you put your energy. Once you're in a new job, you're spending a lot of time really in that job. Do you have a plan for how to keep that network alive? Is there a specific playbook that you're working with? Because I know I struggle. Like, it's great to have lots of connections, and I post on LinkedIn, but that one-on-one time, like, there's only so many hours in the day, and it's hard.
It is. It is. It is. I mean, well, definitely. Well, I mean, obviously, when I was trying to find a job, um, I was probably on LinkedIn, every single day for, 2 or 3 hours. I was having informational calls with different people, 10 minutes, 15, 30 minutes, so I was having a lot of very, targeted, conversations. Now, I mean, obviously my job is my job, and the responsibilities are top, my number one priority. But I am trying to carve out at least, every week or every other week. I'm engaging with people on LinkedIn. I'm commenting. I'm, reading something. I'm sharing things. I am trying to start, touching base with like, hey, so and so, do you want to like just grab 5 minutes and catch up. So I'm hoping we can maybe return to in-person conferences because that'll be very helpful.
That would be nifty, wouldn't it?
Seems to be getting closer.
I think we're getting closer. I think SCCE, I think, announced they're doing the fall one in person. So, that I think will be helpful. Because definitely, that first in person, I'm going up and I'm hugging everybody. So, but but I am still trying to figure out a balance, trying to figure out, how I can keep those connections going because I know I need to. I can't just let it just sit there and forget about it. So whether it's just like grabbing a 10-15 minute coffee chat in the morning or trying to schedule something. I do kind of keep up with, so through Mentor Core, you guys do that career connection. So I am trying to still keep engaged with that.
Later tonight,
so I am
7 p.m. Eastern. Friday, 10 a.m.
Tonight's a great night to do that.
So yeah, so it's just finding creative ways to just keep yourself connected.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I think that's the struggle. There's only so many hours in the day and we all have to set priorities. And oftentimes, if it's not on fire, it's not the thing that gets attention. And I think that can hurt you when things start to get on fire. So I love that you're very mindful about that. And Dan just put the compliance career connection in the chat so everybody can attend if they haven't in the past or if they would like to tonight and on Friday.
And if you're watching in the replay, sorry to interrupt, if you're watching in the replay, this is not the last event. Look down below, we'll put the link in there and you can get to, you can sign up for the mailing list and get notified of future events that are all aimed at trying to get people ready to get their, to find their next job.
Oh, no, I was going to say the other thing I do is, again, this is probably the project manager in me. I book things in my calendar or I make a to-do list in my calendar. So I do try to make sure that, once a month I'm scheduling time to update my resume. That I am, reaching out and scheduling those kind of coffee chats or oh, I need to follow up with so-and-so. So I am kind of in my mind, so I may not get to it, 1 week, but I know it's in my calendar and I try not to shift it out. I try not to be in that process where I'm like, oh, I'm going to shift it out another week. I'll shift it another week. But I do try to schedule it so that it's top of mind for me that I need to be doing certain things.
So you said something that piqued my interest. You said that you put some time aside to update your resume every month. Can you explain a little bit about that? I know why I do it, including that it's important for me to remember what I've done and accomplished. But tell me more about why you chose to do put time aside and how you think that helps overall.
So probably it's a learning lesson from last year. So again, I never thought it would happen. And when I lost my job and, I had not really updated my resume in probably 2 years. It didn't have my most recent position at my former company. So, and then I didn't have some other things, other groups that I belong to. My LinkedIn profile was a little outdated too. So I had let things kind of just sit because I was in that comfort zone, oh, I'll be fine. I'll update it. I'll update it. And they kept pushing it and I kept pushing it. And then finally, I had to do it. I had to dust it off. And so I basically, I guess it's my own kind of internal mindset. I don't want to be in that same position again. So it's more like a safety net for me just to make sure that, and plus it also be very helpful when I do have my performance reviews. I can also use that and some other notes that I have on what I've been doing, what have I accomplished.
Yeah, I think that's something that people just often forget to do is mark down all of the accomplishments throughout the year. And then at the end of the year, as they're scrambling to try to say, here's how awesome I am, they often are at a loss because they've forgotten what happened in January, February, March, April, May, June, July, until maybe 3 months beforehand, because we are doing so many things and we forget about it.
And because there's so many compliance people here, the idea, there's also in some regulated fields, you're obliged to keep an updated resume to be able to present to a regulator or an auditor at any time to prove that you're qualified to do the job you do, and it needs to be up to date. So apply, update your resume, or your company might get fined.
Right.
If the proactive approach doesn't resonate with you, maybe that one does.
Yeah,
that one does.
I think that people get really sometimes nervous about keeping their resume up to date, and it's actually such an important hygienic practice. It's kind of like brushing your teeth. You only brush the teeth you want to keep. Well, you only keep your resume up to date if you want to stay up to date on your skills
Right.
and all of the other things, because otherwise it's too
If
easy
you
to
want to
let
get
it slide.
promoted, I mean, that's another way to kind of, show like how you want to, like, are you ready to be promoted? Like you can,
Right.
again, show off like, this is everything that I've been accomplishing in this role.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
updating your resume doesn't mean you're cheating on your job.
Well, and I also think it's one of the things that people often forget to do is take the job description when they first get the job or the promotion or whatever, and make sure you always have that to say, okay, like here are the things you said that I was supposed to do. Here's what I've learned, and here's how the job is expanded. And these are all the other things that aren't on
That
there
I've
that
been
I'm
doing.
doing. Let's give some credit where credit's due, because this scope creep continues to be a problem, I think, pretty much everywhere. So I know we're getting to the end of our time, and we want to make sure to ask that signature question that we always ask, which is, what's the best advice you've ever received from a mentor?
So I have to say the best piece of advice I've ever received is, oh my gosh, now I went blank. Oh my gosh.
The best
Oh
piece of
man.
advice was, don't forget the best piece of advice.
Don't forget the best piece of advice. I knew you were going to ask that question. I'm like on the tip of my tongue. Okay,
Amy, I know we
okay,
said
so
make it look like we didn't let you know that this question was coming. This may not be that. You're really good at this.
Actors Award goes to for the best picture. So I think, okay, so here we go. So the best piece of advice I got from a mentor was, you can't control the situation, but you can control how you react and respond to it. So you're going to come across things that, don't go your way, or, you have a failure. You're not going to be able to control that, and you just control how you respond and react to it.
Mhm.
You'll be
That's really
remembered for
great.
that.
Really great advice.
Yeah, that's a great, call to the mindset that you bring to you wherever you go, right? And I think that's a wonderful piece of advice. I think that's our definitely a quotable moment that you will be seeing soon on a screen near you, because that's a little bit of what we do.
Recovered very well.
We already got some people in the chat saying, hey, that's great advice. So, really appreciate you being willing to share that and being able to share this kind of roller coaster journey that you've been on, which of course has such a beautiful, happy, at least momentary ending, right? It never ends. We're still in this process of living. But what a wonderful journey to share with everyone, and to open up that dialogue in your blog just helps people so much. So we're so thankful that you were willing to spend some time with us today.
Thank you. I'm very happy. When you suggested this, I was like, yes, let's do it. I'm so excited. So thank you. And thank you to you both and Mentor Core. Again, I've been probably listening since you guys started this last year. So, and thank you for all your help and advice and wisdom, and everybody in the community. It's been so rewarding, and to get to know everybody and share and absorb.
That's great. Well, we're glad it resonates, and we're glad that the community exists, and we're grateful for you being part of it. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. We'll be back in next Wednesday with another guest and another discussion. Until then, we'll see you soon.